Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Medicine Summit. I'm Dr. Christine Schaffner, and today I'm with my guest, Dr. Beth McDougall, and we're going to be talking about the Pristine Blueprint. Beth McDougall is the founder and medical director of CLEAR, Center of Health in Mill Valley, California, where she specializes in helping patients with chronic illness and neurodegenerative diseases. She's advancing a new medical paradigm, one at the intersection of medicine and contemporary physics, to transform the practice of medicine. Her soon-to-be published book introducing this paradigm, Your Pristine Blueprint, The Missing Key to Longevity, Reversing Disease, and Radically Transforming Your Life, addresses how the larger context can lead to profound health and well-being. Wow, welcome, Dr. McDougall. It's really an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. My pleasure.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to dive in about your expertise. This is an area that I'm super passionate about as well. And I really so enjoy looking at the body from the lens of course, biochemistry and naturopathic medicine and functional medicine. But there's this whole realm to us that this summit is really presencing, and that's this realm of biophysics and this whole other nature of the human body. So can you just share a little bit, Beth, about your journey to experience this part of the body?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just started right out of the gate in my medical practice about 23 years ago as an integrative physician. And so I was always thinking very holistically about the body, but and doing, having a remarkably successful practice and, unearthing underlying issues. But very often I just felt like there was a deeper level of causality. Just a deeper, and I'm just wanting to get to the absolute root. And I realized that sometimes that deeper level of causality was really about kind of energetic signatures that were trapped in a person's biofield and even in reverberating in their cells that was related to a past trauma, let's say, or related to societal or familial conditioning, or even to something that happened to them in utero or very young age. And that was kind of smoldering under the surface of their conscious perception. And so I just more and more started studying energy medicine and kind of the human biofield and reading, thinking, people that were thought leaders in that area of how we do store our biography in our energetic system, and really understanding that when someone was committed to diving into this level of their health, oftentimes they would be able to fully unwind a health situation. And so then when sometimes I would just stumble on working with somebody and they would do that. And then I wasn't quite sure how to make that happen for people. And, because it's not really up to me. But what I gradually learned over the, 23 years was to create kind of like the best set of circumstances or environment to help support someone to do that kind of work for themselves.
It's beautiful. And I have a very similar observation I've just been doing this 11 years, but I've seen that story unfold as well. And as people really look at their health beyond their physical body in this whole other realm, there's so much opportunity for true healing to happen, and really a healing on such a deep soul level, which I think is what it's all about. And so no, I love how your journey has taken you there. And you call it the Pristine Blueprint. We all have this pristine blueprint. And can you just share what you mean by this term?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to back up a little bit before I explain, because I think so this dive into energy medicine and the human biofield kind of led to studying biophysics, the body electric, and then I got into studying physics in general and kind of contemporary thinking in physics. And also getting more into the nature of reality and just, what actually constitutes this kind of physical experience that we have here on Earth. And so I really dove into physics and began to understand that we all emerge as unique expressions of this one beautiful field of energy and information that I call the unified field. And I'm not the only one who calls it that, but we all emerge as these unique expressions. And then I also was very influenced by thinking about how matter is not static, but actually is very ephemeral and flickering in and out of existence. And so if that's the case, well, how's that happening? How is it that we are forming and annihilating trillions of times a second, but we're these multicellular complex beings with 37 trillion cells and billions of chemical reactions happening in each cell every second in a coordinated manner? Like, how is that actually happening? And that really got me into researching the idea of morphogenic fields and the work of Rupert Sheldrake and others, because this theory that governs the formation of physical matter is not new. But what I feel is that there is a blueprint that forms at the moment of our conception, when the sperm penetrates the egg and there's that flash of light and actually a sound, that photoacoustic boom just informs the field that our life was created, and that creates kind of a series of intersecting vibratory patterns that actually govern the cellular layout in our embryological development, and creates the information set, this intrinsic data field that orchestrates our exquisitely complex physiology. So we have this pristine blueprint that, when it's translated properly, results in vibrant, optimal health. And then as we go through life, there are things that begin to interfere with the translation of this blueprint. And this blueprint is translating into our physical form and every trillionth of a second as we're flickering in and out of existence. So as we collect misinformation and energetic signatures that are not in harmony with our blueprint as we go through life, that can start to disrupt the fidelity of the translation of the blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's such a beautiful and elegant explanation of really complex topics, right? I love studying what you're just sharing, and I hated physics in school, but this physics is just beautiful, and it has such an elegant explanation of really the nature of reality as you share. And I want to go in a few different directions, but some people might be trying to connect the dots. Okay, we've talked about biofield and unified field, and then we have a blueprint. And so, do you think of the blueprint as something separate, or something, maybe a different word for some of the same ideas when you talk about this blueprint or this signature that we all come to with informing kind of the fullest potential that we can have in a life?
Great question.
Mm.
Yeah, I do kind of think of them as separate things.
Mm.
So the blueprint, I feel like, is this morphogenic field or guiding template, and we've got this kind of generic life force energy in the unified field. There's just almost an infinite amount of energy, and I see the blueprint as guiding the flow of that. Mm-hmm. So, and the blueprint provides the information, so it's guiding this generic life force into into our physical body and giving us life, animating us. And doing that with everything else, so this same life force is animating you, it's animating me, it's animating the animals and the plants, and even the rocks and the inert type things on the planet. So it's really the template that is guiding the energy into these intersecting vibratory patterns that can manifest as us. And then the biofield, I think about as something a little bit different. So you think about, we are electrical beings. It's like our biochemical reactions produce electromagnetic fields. And you think about our cell membranes, for example, and you have what's called a cell membrane potential. And that's really informed by the ratio of ions inside the cell versus out. the ratio of magnesium and sodium and chloride and potassium and things like that inside the cell versus out. And even things like structured water inside the cell. And so you've got a net negative charge inside the cell versus outside of the cell. And we have 3.7 trillion cells. I think Bruce Lipton has said that we collectively have an electromagnetic charge of 3.5 trillion volts, which is extraordinary when you think that a cell phone has 5 volts. This electrical nature of our biology is generating a field that's kind of extending beyond our body. Mm-hmm. And I think of the biofield as having different kind of rings of differing energetic density, so to speak. And I used to think about the biofield as more just kind of existing outside of the body, like depicted in religious iconography and all of that. But it's really differing densities that are interpenetrating within the body itself, because the body is nothing more than intersecting vibratory waves of information. So you just have this kind of like, from the more rarefied all the way up to the grosser level of the biology, you have different layers of energetic density. And I think about the most rarefied layer as in communication with the blueprint.
So, Beth, that was such a beautiful explanation. And just to summarize, just so maybe the audience is, also digesting this alongside myself, is that what you're sharing is, okay, we have this electromagnetic nature from all the reasons that you just shared. And with that being said, as these different layers, again, I love how you share they're not just these separate layers, but they're different interweaving layers of density. But this kind of like outer shell, if you will, is that blueprint that actually is the closest connection, or maybe the most able to connect with the unified field. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think about the human biofield as a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
So a conduit that can amplify the exchange of energy and information from the field when it's clear. Mm-hmm. And when it's cloudy or full of gunk from our unmetabolized emotions and stored traumas, and it can't do that as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I've often used the analogy of, if like you think about the energy inherent in the unified field as a light, and the blueprint, like the old celluloid film, and the light's transferring through the film and producing an image. Well, the image would be like the body. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if you have a room that's full of smoke and particulates and things like that, the light would be passing kind of through those and then through the film, and the image would be a little bit cloudier. Mm-hmm. So that's analogous to having a biofield full of gunk, so to speak. And if it were clear, it's just much more of a crystal clear image that would be like the appropriate image.
I'm just thinking your clinic's name probably has taken on so many different meanings as you've evolved, right? It's just, so that's really, that's a really great visualization. And I have a lot of, connections happening as you share that. And so, our goal to be human, right, is to be a clear conduit to experience the fullest expression of who we are. And I guess that's, again, my interpretation of what you've shared. And then life, right? Life happens and things happen, and things take us out of that potential fullest expression. And so really looking at your role as a physician and a doctor, and really helping people to get in touch with that so that they can be in touch and live their fullest expression. How do we now start kind of talking to the practicality? Like, how does this work? Like, how do you even go about this beautiful, not just theory, but science to explain this, but how does that translate into working with an individual when they're suffering?
Yes. Bringing it to the practical level is the most important thing. So I really think that it's just encouraging someone to take a look at what's in there. And really, in order to do that, I think the best way to discover what we've stored in our biofield, in our energetic anatomy, and even what reverberates in our cells is to do a meditative practice. And so that is something I just encourage people to do, is to develop a meditative practice so that they can become familiar with their unique signature, with their unique sound, like the color, the feeling, the sound, the sense of it. And so that they can begin to then determine what's not them, so they can begin to determine what tension they're holding in their body related to a previous experience, or what's getting triggered in a current interaction with someone that's reminding them of a wound from their childhood, or what feelings they have about themselves that are based on beliefs that were set in place early in life, so they can determine if those beliefs serve them anymore. So that it's really hard to become clear about what's you and what's not you, and whether the beliefs that you hold, especially about yourself, serve you or not, if you're not tuning in. So that's one thing, is that I really encourage people to do that. And then secondly, I think it's incredibly important to cultivate emotional states that are of a higher vibration. So to become aware enough of your thinking and the emotions that those thoughts generate in you, and then critically evaluate whether the emotional vibration of those is serving you or not, because I think there are higher vibrational emotional states that almost have a transmuting effect on the dissonance that's collecting in a person's body and field. And lower vibrational emotional states can create more dissonance. So it's really about self-awareness. And then I also have some practices in my clinic that I do one-on-one with people, where I have a procedure that I do called ACMOS. And that's been a game changer for many of my patients, where I'm using an instrument that's called a Lecker antenna, and it measures the human biofield at different frequencies, and I can tell if it's out of balance or not. And then we kind of dive deeply into figuring out what pieces of misinformation are lodged in the field that are throwing off the biofield, and then we work on drawing those out of the system. And unwinding the compensation a person's body has had to do around all of that. So that's a beautiful process. That's a one-on-one kind of therapy that I do with people. But this kind of thing can be done on your own as well. And it's really just about tuning in, figuring out what's there, grounding it off, and becoming aware of whatever it was there to teach you.
Yeah, no, that's, really great practical information, and it's like an exploration and being curious. And there's so many, you shared a lot of different modalities, and there's so many modalities out there, right? And once you kind of get this awareness and trusting, right, that once you have this awareness, that you'll call to you and draw to you what is going to be part of your path to heal on this level. And as you're talking, people might want maybe a tangible story, or do you have any, anecdotal patient stories or things that you want to share of like a recovery that when you worked in this way that you saw someone's life transform?
Sure. Yeah. I have many. Let's see. Well, I'm currently working with a person who came in an incredibly depleted state. She had an iron deficiency anemia. She had multiple infections in the body, and she had just kind of come off of a difficult work situation where she had very difficult interpersonal interactions, and the whole situation depleted her dramatically. And so she came in, multiple hormonal imbalances and in pretty bad shape. So we worked on a physical level to, some iron IVs and some hormone balancing, and then really worked on treating she had a chronic staph infection, and we treated that in multiple different ways. But her real transformation came when we started working on this deeper layer of kind of dealing with, kind of unwinding some of the familial programming that was affecting how she felt about herself. And this ended up extending into deep energetic work we were doing together, clearing familial lines of dissonance that was kind of coming through familial lines, and working on her energetic anatomy and clearing dissonance out of different chakras, and she was just such a rock star, because she just dove into her kind of exploring her energetic terrain in such a committed way, and really just was, would just come in and be like, today I really want to work on my heart chakra. I feel like it's up in here, and so she was really guiding the process, and 100% engaged. It was not a passive situation at all. And we were just successfully clearing stuff and transmuting and clearing and and she is just thriving. And I have a lot of stories like that. And my favorite patients to work with are those that are just, they want to heal no matter what. They're going to do whatever it takes. And it's usually a multimodality approach, where when working, on a physical level for sure, with diet and nutrition and treating infections and balancing the gut microbiome and balancing the hormones, and it always involves this kind of thing. But then those that have chronic illness that multi decades long, it's like, in order to fully unravel that, for them to move not only to a place of health, but to a place of thriving and expressing their dharma and just passionate about life, having good relationships, that requires this deeper level of work. And like I said, I can't do it for someone else. It's like their choice, and they're showing up, and I can support them along the way, almost hold a container for them that acts like a crucible to, kind of transform and transmute these dissonant signatures.
That's so beautiful. And as you're talking, I've been trained in bioregulatory medicine, and we talk a lot about removing obstacles so the body can self-regulate and heal. And we're always thinking about the nervous system and all these physical layers. But as you shared this work, it's like really clearing the blocks in the field that keep the body from this being in touch with the optimal pristine blueprint. And I just your work sounds so beautiful and rewarding. And as we think about this concept with the individual, right, there's so much there for the individual and individual healing. And then this is also I think really important, especially now, that this framework and this understanding also gives us an understanding of how we're all interconnected, and how we can really just understand that and own that and contribute to that. And so can you just share maybe some of your thoughts about the interconnected nature that this framework and perspective gives us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because the unified field is the energy and the information. And like I said, everything emerges out of that. So it's not just this theoretical concept that we're all related, or interrelated. We're all one thing. We are really all one thing. We're all the same life forces running through all of us. And we're all part of this field and emerging from this field. And when we talk about dissonance that's disrupting the translation of the blueprint, it extends beyond what we've talked about so far. It extends beyond our personal biographies. And it really extends into, the information signatures of the toxins we get exposed to, the information signatures of the pathogens, and you know other things like vaccines potentially as a child, and all of these things. So the Wi-Fi, smart meters, all of this. So we cannot fully have optimal health until we really are addressing the health of the planet. And then it even extends to our fellow human beings, and other species of animals. It's like we cannot fully enjoy optimal health if we're walking over homeless people and, there's people suffering on the street. Like, we just can't.
Mhm.
So it's really about taking holism to an entirely new level. If it's really beyond body, mind, spirit, to our interaction with the field and everything that emerges from it.
Mhm.
And so that's, I think, where we're headed.
Mhm.
When we really grasp that, it's going to change how we approach everything,
Mhm.
energy generation, communication systems. We're not going to be using 5G. We're not going to be using Wi-Fi because it's bad for us. We're not going to be dumping chemicals into the water, because the water, we talk about interfaces and amplifying conduits. We've got our biofield that's in communication with the blueprint, and then it communicates with our biology through the water. We're 99% water by number of molecules. And so, like, we can't be fully healthy if we're polluting bodies in water. It's just impossible.
Mhm.
So absolutely everything is connected. We're all one thing.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's so important. And I have a 3-year-old, so I am really passionate about just, yeah, understanding, how we can really just, just reflect and really make decisions for a different trajectory than the trajectory that we're on right now. And so I think it's just really important that we feel empowered. And, sometimes, I feel that it can be very overwhelming, when you think about, you and I see very similar patients, and we think about the things like, oh my gosh, right? You just named, okay, we got to change Wi-Fi and the food system, and how we educate our children, and there's so many systems, right? It can be very overwhelming. And then Roland McCready, who's on the summit as well, he reminds us, like, just be really cognizant of what you're feeding the field all day long. So it's this idea of, like, we also can, through our own health, our own insight, our own connection with our pristine blueprint, really contribute, right, to the change that needs to happen. So I would love your, because you're so brilliant in all this, I would love your maybe insight into how I kind of think of it, Beth, is like we're almost like a tuning fork in the field. Like, we can kind of create this ripple effect by being of a just more in touch maybe with our pristine blueprint, and that can have an effect more than our mind maybe even can ever contemplate. But it's just that kind of going back and forth between the individual and collective, and helping people feel empowered. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but it's just kind of a reflection I'm sitting with as you speak.
And I'm really sitting with the same right now too. But I believe that part of our evolution now as a species is to really understand that we are creators.
Mhm.
And this physical experience that we're having is profoundly influenced by us, and by our belief about what's possible, and by what we visualize as possible. And so that's kind of one of the things that I feel is my dharma on the planet, is to really influence, try to play my role, to help with this paradigm shift that we're right on the cusp of right now. Which I think, when we really understand that we are all part of this one thing, this then it almost puts you in a state of awe. Like, it's the grand design of all of this is just so exquisite. It's so magnificent, and then you realize that the thought forms that we hold can influence the expression of physical reality. And we get so sucked into this like dominant thought form. It's almost like an energetic entity that begins to control us. And so then we need to really figure out how to be aware of like this current reality, and the dominant thinking in the reality, but not be controlled by it, so that you have then the freedom to envision a different reality that you want to create. And then the more you can kind of get with other people that are sharing this reality, because it's a collective co-creation, then you can start to create a parallel reality that is where we all understand that we're part of one thing, that we can't pollute the water, we can't pollute the air, that if we, we need clean energy generation and safe communication technologies and safe agricultural practices, and no, we can't use glyphosate, we can't, like when we understand that, then we can shift it.
Mhm.
So that's why I've written a book, and it's like the health of the individual is inseparable from the health of the environment, and we all need to be thinking much more holistically than we have been.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said. And, I very much agree with you. And, I would just love to also hear, and I'm sure you write about this in your book, but as you are, one of the pioneers to really help to shift the paradigm of medicine and how we really look at the human body and look at the collective. Do you have a vision or a vision of the future of, I'm just calling it medicine, maybe it's beyond that for you, but I just would love to hear that maybe from you, a little bit of the vision that this new paradigm is ushering in.
Yeah. Well, for one, we're derived from this, we emerged from this field, and our medicine should be the basic components of the field itself. So if the field is electromagnetic signatures we need to be treating with light and sound and information signatures, and removing dissonance, and coherent field therapies where we create an amplifying conduit that amplifies the exchange of energy and information with the field itself, so that there can be better communication with the blueprint. We need to be creating technologies that transmute dissonance, so that we can have the right information informing our biology. So it's really just when we understand that the nature of reality, and that how we are derived from this field, then that let the field be the medicine.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And I completely agree. I'm just exploring light and sound. And the more I've studied this, I'm like, health is coherence, like how do we, just kind of these concepts and things. So I think that's really beautiful. And I'm just super curious. I mean, you have a clinic, and is there anything on your heart as far as technologies? I mean, you shared some daily practices that I think are really important, but just as you think about, when we see the patients as sick as they are, that sometimes they need that assistance and support to get the energy to then do the work. And so are there any technologies or therapies that create coherent field therapies, as you said, that you're super excited about sharing at this time?
Yes. Yes. So right now I'm using photobiomodulation therapy with red light and near infrared. I have a Novathor bed in my clinic that looks like a tanning bed type situation, but it doesn't have any UV light. It's just red and near infrared. And the wavelengths of light in red and near infrared have been shown to upregulate mitochondrial production, to upregulate the expression of tissue-specific growth factors, to reduce inflammatory cytokines, to improve, speed healing and regeneration. And so a lot of times I'm weaving that into the therapies. I do a lot with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. I have a Hocket in my office, which is like a infrared sauna capsule that you get in, you close it up to your, at your neck. And it's an infrared sauna And while you're in there, there's a pulsed electromagnetic field device that's delivering electrons. And that's charging up those cell membranes I was talking about earlier and improving that, overall 3.5 trillion volts of electricity in your body. And then there, while you're in there, there's ozone therapy for dealing with pathogens and for bringing oxygen into the system and upregulating the endogenous kind of oxidative mechanisms of the immune system. And then while you're in there, you can do some frequency therapy. So there's frequencies to kind of support different health goals, whether it's to open up pathways of elimination in the liver, kidneys, and lymphatics, or to even treat particular viral infections or to support the elimination of those. Mm-hmm. So that's one device I love. I really love using electromagnetic signatures for treating illness, or for supporting, I shouldn't call it treating, but for supporting the resolution of illness. And so a lot of times in my clinic, we have a device where it's a biofeedback device. And so we hook people up and to sensors, and we measure the energetic signatures that are aberrant in a person's system. And then we can send back ameliorating signatures, and we send it through various means. We can send it through ultrasound, so we can use ultrasound in various areas of the body, or we can deliver the frequencies through plasma. So there's a plasma wand, that can deliver frequencies. That was a favorite way of delivering frequencies in the earlier part of the 20th century, and I really think it's the best way to do it. And you can deliver it just through microcurrent, and so we're doing it in all ways in a session with people. And there's so many more therapies kind of on the horizon that are more along the lines of a coherent field therapy. I was able to set up a small room in my clinic to be a coherent field, and patients that were really sick just loved it. Like they just were like, thank God, like when they would get in there, because it would just help to just reduce the noise in their system. And you can do that with scalar technology. So that's primarily how we did it.
Oh, wow. What an amazing idea. I know my musing that I've had over the years is like, I want to create a clinic where people just walk in and they start to heal, so you've already done that, Beth, so that's amazing. So
we actually have done that.
Yeah.
Our whole clinic is held in a scalar field.
Oh, wow.
So we have like, kind of paired scalar devices, like from the doorway, like all the way to the farthest corner, which is creating a coherent field in the whole clinic. And we're putting like solfeggio frequencies and frequencies and, Schumann resonance and kind of peace frequencies and things like that in. And honestly, I think that one of my really sick patients who's just also just making leaps and bounds healing and been sick for decades, she ended up getting the same kind of scalar device for her house, and she sleeps in a scalar field now. She has like, both sides of her bed, and it's just amazing how amazing she's doing. And it's again aquamos, pulling layers out, and treating Lyme and pulling out mycotoxins and everything. But it's really the deep energy work that she's done that's just been so incredibly transformative, and like taking ownership of her field, because she had many violations as a child, and like so many of my very sick patients have. And she really, is kicking that energy out and establishing her boundaries and taking ownership and being like, you cannot be here. And then as she did that, she'd be passing parasites and all of this, because they're so symbolic. They slide in on that same energetic breach that was created earlier in life. So.
Yeah, no, I see the same things with that connection. That's really, I think it's that physical manifestation of that, boundary disruption or violation rather, so no, I think that's, yeah, amazing, and so amazing about the scalar energy that you're using. And, I want, I think as we approach the future with this knowledge, we're still, the old ways are here, right? And so especially in the realm of EMF, and I know people are very interested in that who are listening, it's like there's this idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you create these coherent fields with technologies like the scalar technology that you have, that almost like overrides or harmonizes or creates a more biocompatible maybe effect to the onslaught that we're getting. Is that your understanding, or do you have a different viewpoint?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, I think that basically they create like you can structure water and you can structure space. And as you structure space, it acts like a greater conduit of energy and the correct information. So then when you have the correct information informing your biology, then you're a little less vulnerable to being thrown off by misinformation.
I understand. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, and when you're talking about space and structuring space, I mean, maybe this is like a whole nother rabbit hole to go into, but the whole idea, which you've already shared, like this fourth phase of matter, plasma, right? That we're in basically a sea of charged energy. And the more that we structure and organize that helps our, our blueprint, right? Organize make our pristine blueprint more easily able to unfold. Is that
Exactly right.
your understanding? Yeah.
That's my understanding. Yeah. I mean, I think about the states of matter and ether at the most fundamental level, and then plasma, and then moving into kind of electricity and magnetism and atoms and molecules, and into the biology itself. And I think about the blueprint really kind of at the etheric level. And so you create, if you can structure the space, you're creating greater communication with the blueprint. And then I think about structuring the space, then having a clarified biofield, which acts like a biolaser. Then you have water, structured water in the body, and then the biology, the biochemistry and whatnot. And you can just have this seamless flow of information into your to actually form and orchestrate your biology. But it really requires all of those levels.
Yeah. Wow. Right. The living matrix is like now extended, like to the, so that's really beautiful. So Beth, you wrote a book, right? You wrote a book, your Pristine Blueprint. And can you just tell us a little bit? The book is coming out right after the summit. So I'm hoping that many people find this who want to learn more, but just tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, thanks. Well, we've talked a lot about the concepts of how we emerge from the unified field, and the concept of the blueprint, and how it really confers our uniqueness and orchestrates our physiology. And then the rest of the book is looking at different aspects of our lifestyle and how we can accumulate dissonance, or we can transmute dissonance and avoid the accumulation of further dissonance. So we're looking at, of course, the human biofield and the energetic anatomy, and doing the work to kind of clear all of that out, and looking at our thinking and the emotional states that our thoughts generate in us, and how that's affecting us, our health. And then looking at the food we eat and the water that we're drinking, and even things like our relationship to our significant others, to people, to ourselves, to our dharma, and then exploring some of the medicine of the future with these different energetic technologies.
Well, I'm so glad you wrote that book and have had the inspirations that you've had that led you to explore this really exciting next, I think, paradigm, right, that we're bringing in through clearly the collective energy shifting at this time. And so, Beth, where can people find out more about you and your center and anything else you'd like to share?
Well, you can find me on social media. BethMcDougallMD.com is my personal website, and then my clinic is clearcenterofhealth.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom, and really stretching us all to really connect and to really communicate with our pristine blueprint. So thank you so much for being on the summit.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. My pleasure.